And we're live. And let's see. Yep, we got stuffy stuffs. Okay, let's do this. And good morning. How you guys doing? It's Firearms Friday. One of the just most favoriteest days of the week. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Starting off this morning with a little something that Ma sent me. The woman will make you feel special, guys. She it's almost like she knows that I do we do a show, and that I'm a big giant nerd. So she sent me this nice Spock meme. I reject the belief that I must be defenseless in order for you to feel safe. And honestly, yes. There's the thing about how, you know, a sheep gets attacked by a wolf, and the sheeps all get together and say, man, that wolf, he used his teeth and killed that sheep. I know, we'll ban teeth. And of course, the wolf doesn't give a damn. And now it's even easier for the wolf to attack sheep. So I'm going to start off by saying good morning to Pit Danny, and then there's Ma in the chat, and then James Wilbanks, Megan Anderson Wilbanks, and Danielle Munoz. Yes, it's Cam Solo. It's another it's another control issues edition, but I don't have control issues. I just have control. Pit Danny says highly illogical for me to give up my gun, and then Ma comes back and says, so you put a donkey with the sheep. Yes, I would rather not have to rely on a guard. So it is Firearms Friday, and because it's Firearms Friday, there's firearms related stuff to get to. The first thing that we're going to cover before we get to the DGUs is a thing that I happen to think is a pretty big deal. So I'm sure most of you guys have already heard. Deliberately looking at NPR's take on this because, you know, they're government funded with help from people like me and you. Here we go. Payment processor Visa Inc. said Saturday that it plans to start separately categorizing sales at gun shops, a major win for gun control advocates who say it will help better track suspicious surges of gun sales that could be a prelude to a mass shooting. But the decision by Visa, the world's largest payment processor, will likely provoke the ire of gun rights advocates and gun lobbyists who have argued that categorizing gun sales would unfairly flag an industry when most sales do not lead to mass shootings. It joins MasterCard and American Express, which also said they plan to move forward with categorizing gun shop sales. So, just quick recap: when you swipe your credit card at different places, there's different little codes that are generated in order to make it easy, for everything for billing and tracking. A lot of these credit card companies have got reward systems and points and cashback programs and stuff like that. So they might say, hey, we'll give you at the end of the year 1% cashback on everything that you spend at the grocery store. So they create a separate category for grocery store purchases, that kind of thing. So it's actually not terribly difficult for them to make a category that is for sporting goods and gun shops and stuff like that. So there's a couple of problems with this. I'm going to go a little further into the article so that we can really get the full flavor of it. Visa said it will adopt the International Organization for Standards' new merchant code for gun sales, which was announced on Friday. Until Friday, gun store sales were considered general merchandise. Okay, let's start from the very, very, very right here. Just because something is an international standard does not mean it needs to be the American standard. The left in particular is bad or good, depending on how you want to look at it. But they're good at using the linguistics here to their advantage. They're totally okay with saying, hey, Europe has socialized medicine. How come we don't have a single payer system here in the United States? But as soon as you point out, okay, cool, I tell you what, let's go ahead and have Europe's 15-week abortion ban. Well, hold on now there, partner. You're interfering with a woman's right to choose. Okay, so what you're saying is that when it's convenient, when it's something that's important to you, you suddenly don't want the government to have a say on what you do with your body anymore. Huh, that's interesting, and that's noted. And so the same thing here, just because there's some international standard that says, oh, we're gonna use a code so that we can track gun store purchases. I don't care what they do in Denmark or Zimbabwe or China or Russia or any of those other countries. Okay, it's worth looking at what they do. It's worth understanding what they do. And we might even want to copy their systems in certain places. But you can miss me with the nonsense where you say, well, that's how they do it in France. Okay, great. Well, what about the other things they do in France? So the whole international thing in and of itself is a problem. And then there's this additional layer to it that when you start talking about like potential world government type stuff, that's when it gets really spooky. Like the UN has floated, taxes to floated the idea of worldwide taxes to combat climate change. And spoiler alert, who do you think is going to pay most of those taxes? Okay. It is not going to be South Africa, okay? It is not going to be China, even though they pollute more than any other country. It is going to be us. So, all right. Following ISO's decision to establish a new merchant category code, Visa will proceed with next steps while ensuring we protect all legal commerce on the Visa network in accordance with our long-standing rules, the payment processor said in a statement. Visa's adoption is significant as the largest payment network, and with MasterCard and American Express will likely put pressure on the banks as the card issuers to adopt the standard as well. Visa acts as a middleman between merchants and banks, and it will be up to banks to decide whether they will allow sales at gun stores to happen on their issued cards. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. At any point in time, somebody in a bank can, or an office or whatever, they could do a few clicks with a mouse, and then your credit card doesn't work anymore. Or you've got to answer a whole bunch of extra questions, a thing that's completely legal to do now. Like, the vast majority of the people in the chat could go out, and if they wanted to, they'd pull out the credit card and, buy an AR-15, walk right out the door with it. But because of maybe some things you posted on social media, or something that happened in your past, or maybe some incident from years ago, maybe even from your childhood, suddenly you're flagged, okay? And you have to answer questions. Well, 17 years ago, you said this thing, and are you sure you're not gonna, be suicidal or homicidal or whatever? Or, you had a girlfriend accuse you of domestic violence a dozen years ago. Or, when you were a kid, when you were a minor, you got in trouble, and those records are supposed to be sealed. But hey, everything's tracked on social media, so we know that you're guilty of this. So you need to answer some questions before we let this gun purchase go through. And that's only like layer one of it. And I deliberately bring up social media in this context because this will be part of a social credit score thing. I mean, almost certainly. Tell me you think I'm wrong if you think that I'm wrong. That in a few years, we could very easily see a world where every time you buy a gun, and you do it with a credit card, there's additional paperwork that's generated automatically. And look, y'all, it's not done by the government. It's done by private companies, because they're just trying to be responsible payment processors, see? The last thing they would want is for you to do something evil with that gun. No, 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 no. And then, hey, it's not the government keeping a record of all these things. It's private companies. So that's kind of the next layer here. This is a fantastic way to have a gun registry. Now, it won't let them register guns. Like, my father gifted me guns over the course of my life. Those won't be registered in this system. But any new purchase of a firearm, oh yeah. Oh yeah, bam, that sucker's registered now. Because, man, all that has to happen is, I don't know, maybe there's this dossier that says a guy running for president had some Russian hookers pee on a bed, so we've totally got a spy on him, and get a judge to rubber stamp it. Oh, I mean, I'm sorry. I was talking about Trump. My bad. All that would have to happen is for you, me, anybody to just be so dangerous, right? And then, well, the ATF or whoever, gosh, they've got to issue subpoenas to maybe the pawn shop where you bought the gun, and then subpoenas to Visa that you used to buy the gun at the pawn shop. And then I'm sure, for some reason I'm thinking about Trump again and special masters, but I'm sure that if they decide to subpoena all that information, they'll only subpoena the information that's relevant to your case. They would never, never, never use it as an excuse to look at the rest of your purchase history and or find out who else in your area made similar purchases. The government would never do that, right? Anyhow, we're going to go a little further into this, and then I actually want to back up to one thing, and then we're going to end on some DGUs. Okay. Go away, go away. Okay. Critics of the move say it doesn't track what was bought. Gun rights advocates argue that tracking sales at gun stores would unfairly target legal gun purchases, since merchant codes Just track the type of merchant where the credit or debit card is used, not the actual items purchased. A sale of a gun safe worth thousands of dollars and an item considered part of responsible gun ownership could be seen as a large purchase at a gun shop. The industry's decision to create a firearm-specific code is nothing more than a capitulation to anti-gun politicians and activists bent on eroding the rights of law-abiding Americans one transaction at a time, says Lars Delside, a spokesman for the National Rifle Association. Over the years, public pension funds have used their extensive investment portfolios to influence public policy in the marketplace. The California Teachers Fund, the second largest pension fund in the country, has long taken aim on the gun industry. It has divested its holdings from gun manufacturers and has sought to persuade some retailers from selling guns. 4 years ago, the Teachers Fund made guns a key initiative. It called for background checks and called on retailers monitor irregularities at the point of sale, to record all firearms and audit firearm inventory on a regular basis, and to proactively assist law enforcement. Okay. Hey, Jeff Goldblum's silent fart showed up, and then Alex Bleeping Jones. Welcome, brother. It is good to see you in the chat. First time in a hot minute. Okay. In this first paragraph in the article here, gun rights advocates argue that tracking gun sales at gun stores would unfairly target legal gun purchases. You just gotta love the language and how they're gonna just slightly manipulate the wording, because that's true. That is a thing that some gun rights advocates argue. That is absolute fact. You gotta love. In fact, they started it all the way at the top of the article here. In the second category, in the second paragraph, the decision by Visa, the world's largest payment processor, will likely provoke the ire of gun rights advocates and gun lobbyists who have argued that categorizing gun sales would unfairly flag an industry when most sales do not lead to mass shootings. Again, the language there, the way that is framed, because yes, it will provoke ire, and there will be people that will argue that gun sales don't lead, that most gun sales don't good grief, that gun sales don't lead to, that most sales don't lead to mass shootings. Yes. But when they say most sales don't lead to mass shootings, we're talking like 99.9% of this, right? In fact, the majority of your illegal shootings are with firearms that were purchased on the black market. Cash is king. And unfortunately, I would not at all be surprised if we move further and further away from cash. It'll be difficult because there will be people that will resist it very heavily for multiple reasons, but it's entirely possible. Like, supposedly Starbucks is going to go entirely cashless. It wouldn't be that difficult to engineer a situation where pawn shops and sporting goods stores were similarly encouraged. Because, see, we go back to the banks, right? Let's go back to those banks. Every time you swipe that card, there's a small fee generated. It's debit cards have been huge for banks. It's made them billions and billions and billions of dollars because they get a few cents on every transaction. And that has a tendency to come out of the profits of the store and all that. So what if they go to, let's just use Walmart as an example, Bass Pro Shops, they didn't pick any big retailer, and they say, hey, we'll straight up give you 1% off all your purchases if you go entirely cashless. Well, gosh, you know, Walmart might have to just take them up on that offer. So this is absolutely a it's evil, nefarious. Anytime you see the word international, that's like strike one and strike two. This is a way to create a gun registry because they've very cleverly kind of said part of the quiet part out loud here. Well, just having a separate purchase code doesn't necessarily allow you to track what was actually purchased. Like a nice gun safe does cost thousands of dollars. And let's say you go to a sporting goods store. Let's say you go to a sporting goods store and you buy a really nice compound bow. Well, that's still going to show up on your credit card receipt. Well, this guy went to a sporting goods store, spent $1,000. We know what he did. He bought a rifle. Well, no, he bought a compound bow. How would they know the difference? That is an interesting question. Did you guys just accidentally say the quiet part out loud? Because I think he said the quiet part out loud. And then finally, if everything is reliant on using your Visa debit card, using your Master debit card, whatever, it's only a matter of time before they can lock you out of the ability to conduct commerce. Like, here's one. Just another thought, and this is just stuff I've spitballed over the past couple of days since I heard this. What if there's an automatic flag put on all purchases over $100 at any sporting goods store, and for 72 hours, you can't use your card at all? And I mean, not to pump gas, not to go to the grocery store, not to pay your light bill. You could, without making anything illegal, you could make buying guns, buying ammunition, and buying related equipment such a pain in the ass that a lot of people won't do it. And then a lot of people say, cash is king, cash is king, cash is king. How long before we hit a point to where if you try and withdraw more than $200 out of the ATM. In fact, a lot of ATMs have limiters on them where you're not allowed to withdraw more than $300 to $500. Banks say that's for your protection so that somebody can't hold you up at gunpoint and force you to empty out your bank account. But, you know, yeah, there's a lot of things that these companies do for our protection, and it's not really for our protection. All right. So, yeah. And then finally, this will be tied into your social media. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. We now live in a world where every mistake you've ever made in your entire life is a Google search away, a Facebook search away, whatever, for better or for worse. Like, people, seriously, teach your kids, be damned careful about what you post on social media because the internet is forever, okay? But this will be tied into social media stuff. This will be a credit score, a social credit score type of thing. Everything about this is terrible. It's awful. It's bad. It's no good. It makes guys like David Chipman get, you know, 1.5-inch long erections. Chris, the founder of the Brushfire Mind Project, says, this is not a capitulation to anti-gun activists. Make no mistakes. It is not that the anti-gun activists have pressured the credit card companies. The credit card companies are headed by those activists. That's probably true in many cases. It's weird. The left, in its eternal projection, always talks about the evil Republican, the rich guy rubbing his hands and twirling his mustache and counting his money while orphans starve to death in the streets. They've got this whole caricature of the evil rich man. And yet, if you look at Wall Street, if you look at boardrooms, the majority of those people are on the left. It's kind of weird. It's just a thing that I've noticed. They are not in cahoots with the enemy. They are the enemy. Yes. Yes. David Bethea says, go a little deeper. Visa had to go on hold for a minute. They took a 3.4% hit in the stock market. I guess they are rethinking this coding policy for a minute. Yes, and a hit like this was inevitable, okay? However, with the exception of some of the stuff that's happened at CNN recently, the left, I think, has proven that it's willing to take those kind of financial hits because ideology is king. Nothing is more important than the message. So they'll go on hold. They'll let something else happen. They'll let you get distracted by something else. They'll wait for, they'll wait for another mass shooting to happen. They'll wait for a politician to make a suggestion, something, and then they'll use that event as cover. I mean, on hold for a minute, yes, but this idea is not going away. This idea is either summarily defeated and roundly mocked by freedom-loving individuals, or it will come back. It will. I mean, there are so many things that we have made the mistake of thinking are a joke or whatever. Oh, that could never happen. And then it happened. Jen Lee McGinnis is late. Thank you for joining us. Alex Bleeping Jones says they want to get rid of cash so they can track everything. That's not going to be as easy as they... there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. They can, as I said earlier, they can discourage the use of cash and or encourage the use of plastic. But getting rid of it is... that's... I don't know that will ever happen. Alex Jones, let's see. Alex Jones says, I don't think gun stores will go cashless unless they're forced to. Dr. Metaverse says Fortnite is greater than the NRA. Sir, I happen to agree with that. And then here we go. Several years ago, the Obama administration had banks closing the accounts of gun sellers without warning. It happened to my brother-in-law. Yes. Yeah, it's not that hard for you to be flagged. Oh, you're suspicious. Let's freeze out all your accounts. I mean, ask Alex Jones, who now somehow has to pay $40 million, despite clearly not having $40 million. And David Mathey points out one of the obvious things, that most bad guys don't want the paper trail anyway. It looks bad in court when they get caught. Yes, if you go and you buy a weapon, all right, and there's a record of it, that's one of those things that a district attorney is going to use in your trial. Like, you want to purchase the gun illegally, right? So that you could throw it in the river when you're done because you don't want evidence. Alex from the TPS report has joined us and says, I buy a lot of ammo, but I use one-time virtual cards. My bank has no idea what I'm purchasing. Yeah, that's, again, that's one of those things, and maybe that's the way to go. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if, just like we have limits on our safety for how much cash you can take out of the bank, I could see a world where there's limits placed on gift card purchases, and or in order to foster responsible gun ownership, once these codes are created, those cute little Visa gift cards can no longer be used at gun stores. So maybe that one-time virtual card thing is worth exploring. But even that, you know, like, take some of the biggest banks in the country, like Wells Fargo and Bank of America and stuff like that. If they are discouraged from letting those transactions go through, buying those virtual cards might be difficult. Martha's Vineyard, yes, Crackshot, we're going to cover that on Monday. And then let's see, Dr. Metaverse says they didn't freeze the Tsarnaev brothers' accounts and they were deemed suspicious twice. Yes, you know, that's part of the other reason why I've got a real problem with this. Generally, the government has proven, and I mean proven, that they'd much rather go after Kyle Rittenhouse than they would the Tsarnaev brothers. You know, it almost always comes out that like the Pulse nightclub shooting. Turns out we knew this guy was a gay Islamist that didn't want to admit that he was gay, right? But he wasn't white. He wasn't Christian. He wasn't an orange man who was bad, who supposedly had hookers pee on a bed, right? None of that happened. So, anyhow, okay. Here we go. Gonna roll right over. And this one is an update. And this one is interesting because, man, y'all, no-knock raids are... They are effective when executed correctly. There are fantastic arguments to be made. There are arguments to be made that it is terrible and just a rank violation of your civil liberties. There are also arguments to be made where there are some warrants that cannot be served if you knock. Like, look at that whole Brittany Griner situation. And then Elomato, welcome to the channel. Hey, I'm relatively new to your channel. What are your thoughts on the war taking place in Armenia in terms of geopolitical standpoint? That's a whole separate thing. On Fridays, we tend to cover firearms, firearm related stuff. Geopolitics is the kind of thing we're usually going to cover on Tuesdays or Thursdays. Come back then and please ask your question and we'll be happy to dig into it. And then Jen JDF. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Okay. DA no longer seeking death penalty against Killeen man accused of fatally shooting detective during no-knock raid. The Bell County District Attorney's Office is no longer seeking the death penalty in its case against Marvin Guy, the man accused of fatally shooting Killeen police detective Charles Chuck DeWindy during a no-knock raid in 2014. On Friday, September 9th, the state of Texas filed a waiver of the death penalty and a request for a speedy trial. Guy remains in Bell County, where he's been held since May 2014 in lieu of a $4 million bond. Charged with capital murder and attempted capital murder, his trial date has been reset multiple times since his arrest about 5 a.m. Killeen police conducted a no-knock raid at Guy's home on Circle M Drive in Killeen. Gunfire erupted and 4 officers were hit. Guy has always maintained he didn't realize it was police breaking into his home and when he fired his weapon in self-defense. In the wake of the shooting, the Killeen City Council voted to ban no-knock warrants within its city limits. Yeah, that's like I was saying before I went into the story, okay? If you there are situations where it's obviously safer to do a no-knock warrant. You know, just look at the whole Brittany Griner situation. The house they knocked on is the one where Brittany Griner got killed. The house they no-knocked is the one where everybody was arrested without incident. But then you have to be okay with the government being allowed to kick in your door without knocking. And here's the thing, if it's 5 o'clock in the morning and it's dark and you're confused and you don't know what's going on, this could happen. This guy right here could 100% be completely innocent, been in jail for almost 10 years, awaiting trial. And for what? Because Jeff Goldblum's silent fart says, you mean Breonna Taylor? I don't know what I said, but yeah, I meant Breonna Taylor. Boy, I'm going to have to go back and watch the stream. But this guy could just be sitting in jail right now, innocent, when any one of us would have acted the exact same way. I mean, it's sad that the cops are dead, but that's right. Brittany Garner is the woman in Russian prison. Yeah. Boy, that was a word whisker. Anyhow, so no knocks. I think I'm fair to say that no knocks are generally bad. Okay. Another update. Jury finds Alabama man acted in self-defense in Midvale murder case. A jury has acquitted a 27-year-old man of murder, concluding that he acted in self-defense when he killed another man following an hours-long argument in Midvale last year. Shortly after moving from Alabama to Utah for work at Canoga Copper Mine, Lorenzo Parker was staying at a Motel 6 when he got into a fight with Tyler Williams on the evening of June 26. Police say the initial fight ended with Parker being punched, but started up again several hours later. When Williams came back with others, surveillance video presented at the trial showed Williams hitting Parker with a metal pipe before Parker shoots him. Parker is also seen running away as he was pointing a gun at Williams. Jury ruled on September 2nd that Parker was not guilty of the charges against him. Parker's attorney, Rudy Batista, said his client was released from jail that night and is back in Alabama with his family. What happened that night? Batista said Williams initially approached Parker with an offer to sell drugs, and Parker refused. A 13-year-old witness reported seeing Williams punching Parker to the ground earlier before Parker said he didn't want to fight, and the conflict ended. Later that night, Parker's cousin arrived, and eventually the two heard Williams make some gang noises. What are gang noises? That led the cousin to give Parker his firearm. The 13-year-old witness said that Williams came back with others in the early morning hours on June 27th, and Parker told Williams he shouldn't have punched him earlier, which led to another fight. Teenagers' testimony varied regarding when Parker pulled out a gun, according to Batista. The teen could not remember if a gun was pulled out before or after Williams got a metal pipe. However, the video shows Williams hitting Parker multiple times with the pipe. Y'all, shit like this is scary. This is terrifying. This man got hit with a pipe. He was attacked with a weapon and was still charged with murder. I don't see anything here that even comes close to justifying a murder charge. Like, damn. Nope, screw you. Okay. Chicago. How do we love thee? Alex P. Jones says you have to be careful about who you're laying pipe to. That's that's fantastic. Okay. 13-year-old shot by CCL holder while allegedly breaking into vehicle. Chicago police say, gee, what kind of assumptions can we make about everybody involved in this story just based on that headline? A 13-year-old boy, they included the word boy, that's interesting, was shot while allegedly breaking into a vehicle Sunday in Chicago's Oakland neighborhood, according to police. The teen was allegedly seen breaking into a Kia just after 2:30 p.m. in the 3700 block of South Langley Avenue when he was confronted by the owner. The vehicle's owner, who's a valid CCL holder, fired shots toward the teen, striking him in the leg. The teen was transported to Comer Children's Hospital, and the vehicle's owner was taken in by police for questioning. A weapon was recovered from both the 13-year-old and the vehicle's owner, police said. Area detectives are investigating. Okay, so this boy, because man, they made sure to include that language. This boy was armed and allegedly breaking into a car. Donald Trump and the whole fake news thing worked so well, not because Trump was evil, but because this sort of bullshit is in almost all news. I mean, he was allegedly trying to break into a vehicle, right? He had a gun. He was 13. It's 2:30 p.m. He should, and it's Sunday afternoon, you know, but he's got a gun. But he's allegedly breaking into a vehicle. Oh God. And let's see. This was written by the ABC7 Chicago digital team. Nobody even wanted to take credit for it. That's funny. And then finally, let's end with 17-year-old armed with shotgun kills 2 suspects during attempted home invasion in East Harris County. Sheriff says somebody raised their kid right. And then Alex points out in the chat that proportionality is one element of a self-defense claim. That's probably why they're charging. I doubt they'll get a conviction. This probably won't surprise you, but I have a problem with proportionality being part of a self-defense, being part of the bar for self-defense, because that standard is going to vary from state to state. Also, I have no idea what your intentions are. If you punch me in the face, you might just want to punch me in the face. You might want to rob me. You might want to beat me to death. You might want to kidnap me. And then once you bring a weapon into it, any weapon, you're going to hit somebody with, because I assume you're talking about the metal pipe story. Once you bring a weapon into it, I think any question of proportionality should go out the window if it's even a valid question to ask. In my experience, people are capable of understanding where certain lines are. Shooting somebody that has not verbally threatened you and has not made physical contact with you, like, sure, at that point, it's pretty obvious, I would think, that you've overreacted. But shooting somebody that is attempting to do you harm. I mean, I always said that, you know, I'm not interested in getting in any more fights. Chris says, nobody wants to kidnap your ugly ass. Chris, at least I could be kidnapped without 3 men in a crane. But the oh God, that broke my whole thread. I was going to say something else about proportionality, but I guess we're just going to leave it there. Oh, that's it. I always said I don't want to get into a fight because you never know what's going to happen. Like, somebody could hit me and I could fall over and I could just crack my head open and die. Liam Neeson's wife, about like 10 or 12 years ago, fell down while skiing and hit the back of her head and was dead by that night. Total, absolute freak accident. Some of us know a guy that died while we were in high school. Was involved in a car accident that was only going like 5 miles an hour, but he hit his head and he died. So Alex says, I don't disagree. If you escalate, you run the risk of getting charged. And that's true. But I think even bringing escalation into it is wrong. It's one of the many, 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 many things that the left has done in order to chip away at our gun rights. And then Jeff Goldblum's silent fart finds a way, says, I know someone that died in a bar fight. Yeah, it could happen. It could just happen. Total accident. You know, like, and then that's it. Okay. 2 suspects are dead after a 17-year-old teen shot them during an attempted home invasion. Woo, he got both of them. Gonzalez said it happened at the 16,000 block of 1st Street near East Freeway around 10:40 p.m. in the Channelview area. Gonzalez said in his tweet that 3 armed men wearing masks attempted to make force entry into the home where a woman, 2 teen boys, and a 12-year-old boy were inside. At some point, one of the teen boys grabbed a shotgun and shot at 2 of the suspects. Both men died at the scene. Woo! No one inside the home was injured. Gonzalez added that the case will be presented to a grand jury. Again, why? Why? Look, the police obviously should thoroughly investigate any situation like this. Okay, absolutely true. They would be negligent in their duties if they didn't. But what's there to give to a grand jury? You're wearing a mask. You're trying to force your way into somebody's house. And then, well, there's a woman and her children, it seems like, were inside. And one of the older children grabbed a shotgun and defended the home. What's going to the grand jury? Are we going to try and ruin this kid's life? Just like you tried to ruin Kyle Rittenhouse's life? Anyhow, okay. So, it is Friday. We're going into the weekend, and I've run over by about 15 minutes. Safety brief. Guys, let's be honest. I'm not really a safety brief kind of guy. If you want to fry bacon naked, you go right ahead. You live your best life. I'm very libertarian about that kind of thing. But just understand, grease hurts and it sticks to you. So we will see you on Monday for Me More Monday. And we thank you very much for being here. Chris should be back on Monday. Bye-bye.